Hi, my name is Caitlin Lawrence, and this is my introductory speech. But first, this is my audience. Do you remember when we were all little kids and we would play house and we pretended to be mommies and daddies? Ever since I became pregnant with Logan, my dream of being a mommy has become a reality. Many people think that having a kid is an easy job, but once it becomes a reality, being a parent is the hardest job in the world. In this speech, I would like to inform you about why I have chosen the maternal path of life and how I work every single day to be a better mom. Since I was a little girl, I always thought about what it would be like to be a mom. I always looked up to my mother and watched how she raised me and my two sisters, and I always promised myself that I would strive to be as good a mom as she was. My mom was full of tough love. She would always tell us how she wanted things done and how she expected them to be done. If it wasn't to her expectations, we knew that there was a grounding coming and that we had to prepare ourselves for it. Through the expectations and the punishments that I had to endure in my childhood, it helped me gain an idea of how I wanted to create my expectations and punishments for my children in the future. Through all the tough love that she put us through, it helped me grow into the strong and will-minded person that I am today. She was always doing everything for us to make sure we had everything that we could ever want or need. I learned from my mom that it takes a kind and patient soul to put up with children, and that when you have one of your own, you will do whatever it takes to make sure that they have everything they would want or ever need. The way my mother raised me and my sisters is an important part of how I dream to raise my children. But now let's talk about how my life changed once I found out I was pregnant. Sometimes a pregnancy will come unexpectedly. In my case, it was somewhat planned, but as well as a shock for me and the father. As soon as the pregnancy test came back positive, I knew that I had to change my ways. Once I found out that I was pregnant, I went from the party every weekend kind of girl to the staying at home and reading motherhood books kind of girl. I realized that if I wanted any chance of being successful in motherhood, that I had to stop putting myself at risk for things that could get me in trouble or worse in my pregnancy. When people would ask me what I wanted to do and if I wanted to go out and do something, before automatically saying yes, I had to think about the potential consequences that would possibly put me and the baby at risk. That was something that I had to get used to. At the time that I found out about my pregnancy, I was working full-time, but I wasn't enrolled in school. I was kind of hoping that my parents would just take care of me the rest of my life. It hit me like a brick financially and mentally when I came to terms with the reality that I was going to have to go back to college and start being an adult that doesn't rely on mommy and daddy. My mother had made it very clear that she wasn't going to financially support me forever, but she was going to help me until I was able to get back on my feet. I knew it was going to be a long transition in order to give my child the best life I could, but I knew that I had to do whatever it took. So I was going to have to put myself back in school and keep working full time. Now that I've discussed the steps that I took through my pregnancy to better my child's future, I would like to discuss how my life has come along in the past almost 3 years later after having my son. Once I had my son, it wasn't too long after that I ended up becoming a single mom and my responsibilities got even greater. I went from having help all the time to only having help half the time, if that. Within a short amount of time, I took on the responsibilities of a full-time mom, a full-time student, and a full-time employee. All of that while trying to maintain somewhat of a social life so that I didn't become a complete hermit. With the new greater responsibilities that I had gotten, it became difficult for me at times to be able to do all of that I had to do while trying to be a normal person at the same time. Trying to go to school and work at the same time became a difficult task, especially because I was trying to make sure that I got home at a reasonable time at night to be able to spend time with my son so that he didn't feel the slightest bit abandoned by mom. I ended up having to drop out of college for a third time because it became all too much for me to handle. With all the stress that I was dealing with, there were days that I honestly just wanted to give up. I felt like I was the worst mom in the world. I could feel my work performance slipping, and I just felt like a failure for not being in school. Once I reached my lowest point, I knew there was only one thing I could do, and that was to get back into my faith and start praying that God would help me in my times of need. Ever since I was a young girl, I always knew that I could turn to God and He would lead me down the right path. Once I turned back to the direction of God, I could feel that my burdens were being lifted off my shoulder and that I wasn't feeling as stressed as I had once been. Within the last year and a half, with God's help, I've been able to pull my life together, I've been able to start school again, and I have started a new job that I'm excelling at. All the while, I feel like I'm doing great at being a mom to my son. Had I not been able to look up to God for redirection, I don't know where I would be right now. When I thought about being a mom as a child, I thought it was going to be a piece of cake. But when I actually had to go through it, it has been one of the toughest things that I've had to go through in life. Hopefully through my speech, you can carefully think about whether or not you're ready to be a parent and take care of another human being as well as yourself. When someone asked me what I wanted to be when I was younger, my answer was always to be a mom. Little did I know that one day I would actually be living my dream no matter how hard it would be. Thank you for your attention, and let's close out with the audience.